Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's proceedings. Before we launch that, may I ask our religious leaders to offer some prayers. Imam C.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين وإن تستفتحوا فقد جاءكم الفتح ونصر من الله وفتح قريب وبشر المؤمنين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر وسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Shukran. Thank you very much, Imam. Bishop, you have the floor.
Gracious and eternal Father, we continue to thank you because you are a God of mercy, God of love, God of compassion, and God of grace, and a God of forgiveness, and God of healing, and God who repairs all that has been broken down. And so, Lord, we ask that you look kindly upon us as we sit at the TRLC the Lord, it will be spoken with compassion, with love, and with the spirit of forgiveness and of reconciliation with one another. We ask that the Holy Spirit will guide the proceedings today so that everything will augur well to your honor and to your glory, and the benefit be to your children in this nation, the Gambia. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen, and thank you very much, Bishop. Council, are we ready with this morning's witness?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you all. We are ready to proceed. Can you please bring the witness? Mr. Usher, kindly swear in the witness.
I, Mohamed Lamin Kasama,
I, Mohamed Lamin Kasama,
do swear that
do swear that
I will speak the truth,
I will speak the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
You may be seated, please. Good morning, Mr. Gassama. Welcome to the Gambia, and thank you for agreeing to take time off to come and testify before the TRRC. We have already met. It's no longer necessary to do introductions. So today I propose to discuss a few topics with you. The first would be your biographical information, the positions that you held in the military, in particular your role as ADC, the issue of rumors about coup d'etat in the early 1990s and how those issues were handled or dealt with, the events preceding the July 22nd, 1994 coup d'etat, and how Sir Dawda, or the then president, and his party left State House to go to the U.S. frigate that was moored at the Banjul wharves, the events that took place thereafter, refuge in Senegal, departure to the UK, and finally, some of the information you gathered subsequently regarding what happened in the Gambia. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am.
You would agree that that would map out the things that you would want to discuss with the Commission, correct?
Yes, I agree to that. Any subsequent side issues to that as well, relevant, of course.
We would address those as they come up. At the end of your testimony, the Commission would give you the opportunity to say something mainly about institutional reforms and the ideas you have that would help our country move forward and in the right direction. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, could you tell us your full name, please?
My full name is Mohamed Lamin Kasama.
And can you briefly provide details of your educational and professional background?
I did my primary education starting from Dankunku, and then completed at Kauru. From Kauru, that was from 1970 to 77 when I came to Muslim high school. Then I did my O-levels at Muslim high school in 1982. From then I proceeded to St. Augustine's High School, where I had my sixth form education.
What did you do after sixth form?
I worked at Treasury as an accounts clerk for 1 year before leaving to enlist into the Army.
Okay, just for completeness of your biographical information, let's say you were born on 17 January 1963.
1963 I was born, yes, at Banjul.
So 70, you went to Dankunku Primary School, and you proceeded then to Kaur, and in 1977 you went to Muslim High School.
Yes.
And 82 you went to St. Augustine's for sixth form.
Yes.
You enrolled, and then what did you do? You said you joined Accountant General's, right?
Yes, I was at the accountant as an accounts clerk at the Accountant General's Department. Yeah.
For how long did you work at the Accountant General's Department?
That was 84 to 85.
And what happened after 85?
On the 14th of August, 1985 is when I went to enlist into the army, the Gambia National Army then.
Prior to enlisting at the National Army, to the Gambia National Army, did you, but let me rephrase the question. Why the National Army?
Well, before the National Army, I tried the police first, and then I realized that the procedure of enlisting, I didn't like the whole idea that if I cannot get into on my own merit, I don't have to go through any other person. So on the basis of my qualification alone, I should be able to enlist. So when I found that frustrating, I decided, look, service is service, so I'd rather go to the National Army. So where then I was in question as to whom I know to get into the army.
Well, it is part of our responsibility to identify some of the institutional failings that created problems in this country. You mentioned, albeit rather elliptically, that you had frustrations getting into the police. You had to go to the army, where you did not necessarily have to show who you knew to become a soldier. Can you kindly tell us the problems that you faced in your efforts or attempts to join the police?
Well, I had my guardian's daughter, I used to call Mbinko, used to be working there.
Could you say the name again?
They used to call her Mbinko, you know.
And Mr. Gassama, speak a little bit slowly. You talk fast. So.
My guardian's daughter, whom was responsible for me at Tobacco Road, and she was a police lady at the time, and then she told me, you know, if you want to get into the police, especially to be an officer cadet then, what they used to call an aspirant in the police, so I have to go through her, and she will have to introduce me, you know, to her boss. I think boss was Bolisar then, you know. So I felt uncomfortable with that. You know, we went. I think we had an interview, but then the way I made an assessment, you know, definitely this is not the way to go about the things. It should be mainly based on the merit of my my qualifications and my certificates alone. Then I decided, you know, this is not for me. You know.
What is your basis for saying or for suggesting that your route to entry was not based solely on your qualifications?
Well, he has to introduce me to him. You know, it's not like a process where you have to go and sit down an exam to sit to an exam, and then based on your exam or where you can be assessed. And they say, okay, you have the right qualifications. You've not only the qualifications, but you have passed the exam. You know, what it can allow you to be enlisted into the police force. So, and I have to wait, you know, response from him before I can proceed further. So while that was happening, I said, no, look, I'm not having this. You know, if I have my A-level results and I was already working, you know, I don't believe I should be subjected to going behind somebody, and then somebody has to decide and wait at the whims, you know, of their own choosing before I could be selected. So I said, no, let me try the army myself. So I went directly to the army.
And what happened when you went to the army?
When I got to the army, I remember Wilson, Benjamin Wilson, then was at the training school at the selection. Jokingly, when he saw my...
What was his rank at the time?
He was lieutenant, a lieutenant. And then when he saw my certificate, he was like, what are you doing here? You know, jokingly said, people like you are here just to make cool. because like I think it was implying because you are educated enough not to want to come to the army. So, but that was probably just to pull my legs. So, but then there was no issue down there. I just had to pass the medical, and then I was enlisted without any problems whatsoever.
And where did you do your training?
We had at at Yundum Barracks. I had my 4 months basic infantry training course down there at Yundum Barracks.
Which intake?
The 4th intake.
When did you finish your training?
That was 4 months after. Yeah, I started in August, so this was 4 months after August. Yeah.
So this should be in December, and,
December,
or January 1995.
Yeah,
1985. 86
yeah.
rather. 86 it would be, January 86,
yeah.
thereabout. Yeah. And what did you do after that?
I was, in February, 1st of February, I was made an officer cadet by virtue of my, my certificates and, of course, my performance as well as a recruit.
What did you do after that?
I was appointed to be a training instructor. So I was working with the BAT team, waiting for the opportunity to go for further training abroad.
What do you mean by BAT team?
The British Army training team.
And did you eventually go for training?
Yes, I went to Pakistan, where I did my officers' basic training course at OTS, Officers Training Course in Mangladam, Pakistan.
Do you recall when you finished that training?
I finished the training in 7th of April 1988.
And did you immediately return to the Gambia?
Yes, I returned straight to the Gambia. Upon returning, I was promoted to 2nd Lieutenant.
And where were you posted when you returned?
I became a platoon commander briefly for about 1 year. I was with Delta Company, serving under Lai Conte at Farafenni camp. And then after 1 year, I was brought back to the training school again.
Yes, continue.
That was training school from December 88 to 89. I was at training school as a platoon commander at the same time as a training instructor. So I was doing like dual roles.
Yes, continue telling us about your career progression.
Yeah, okay. Like I said, 1990s when I was promoted to full lieutenant, like 2 stars, from a sub-lieutenant to a full lieutenant. Then on the 17th of July, 1990, is when I was appointed to the ADC, to the president of the country, Sadauda. That means aide-de-camp.
You were still a lieutenant at this stage?
Yes, I was a full lieutenant at the time of my appointment as ADC.
Aide-de-camp is French terminology. Could you kindly tell us what it means?
Well, it means just a helper, if you want to directly translate it, but you are like a personal assistant to the president. You help, you are the final port of call if you want to see the president, anybody. You know, from the protocol, you are the kind of usher who will usher people into the president's office and then take them out if need be, you know, by what you establish to a level of communication between you and the president. And of course, like you carry the briefcase and then you ride with the president in the car, you open the doors for him. Small protocols that goes around the ADC. So there is no set rules or terms of reference how you do your job. So basically you develop based on your own personality and your interaction with the men who work around the presidency. You know, you kind of define the job yourself. But basically your role down there is ceremonial. ceremonial.
The job of ADC, did it traditionally in Gambia carry term limits or not?
Yes, it's a 2-year term limit. After every 2 years, it's been changed. That has been the standard until I came. And then, but somehow the president felt more comfortable working with me. And then he wanted to make it permanent until to his retirement.
So you worked with him from 1990 when
Yes.
you were appointed until when?
Until 1994, on the day of the coup.
Did your rank change at any point in time during this period?
Yes, while I was there, because I didn't have the chance to, sat through the courses while if you are in barracks. So they thought that based on my performance down there and that recommendation that I should have a permanent role, that warranted my promotion to the rank of captain. So my command came from my command, army commander, and they recommended me to the promotion of rank of captain.
Kindly make us understand the entourage or the security around the president. Who are they and what institutions they reported to?
The president will have layers of guards. You have the presidential guard commander, which is originally from the Zandam, but later on it became reverted to known as the Tactical Support Group. They provided the bulk of the perimeter of State House security. And then you have plain clothes, which will be the closest close quarter protection.
Before you get to the plain clothes,
okay.
You mentioned the TSG, the first layer protection, the state guards. Yeah. Who was their commander at the time?
At the time of the coup, it was Kaba Bajo. But before, I had worked with several of them before. I worked with Mudunjai, and I worked with Turo Jaune, and then I worked with Kaba Bajo as well.
At the time that Kaba Bajo was State Guards commander, who was immediately below him?
Lantombon Tamba was the one below Kaba Bajo.
What were their ranks at the time?
Lieutenants.
Both of them?
Yes.
And who would Kaba Bajo report to?
He reports to his commander, which would have been Pasala Jang.
Would he be reporting to Pasala Jang directly, or there is another intermediate commander?
Not that I know of, because like that's their. Well, he'll be reporting to Tro Jaune, who would be in charge of the Bakau barracks as the headquarters for the TSG. Yeah, but then Toro is also answerable to Pasala Jang.
And you said the next layer was the plain clothes.
The plain clothes, yeah.
Could you tell us about them?
This comprises of, you will have from the intelligence, NSS then, National Security Service, plain clothes, and some from the Zandam as well, or the TSG.
And who would they report to?
They will report to Kaba Bajo.
Including the intelligence?
Yes, because they're kind of you can call it second men, so he'll be responsible for all of them.
And then the next would be the ADC.
Yeah, the ADC virtually is, I said, it's like you are in no man's land, so you don't have any command responsibility. You don't. I'm responsible to the. I can report to my army commander, but there was no cause to. Virtually when you are down there, you don't have any more contact with anybody. So you have to forge a relationship between you and all these units working around with the presidency.
Okay. As ADC, you were the last port of call before the president.
Yes.
It meant you had to be wherever he was during his official duties, correct?
Yes.
Did you have to travel with him?
Yes, I have to travel with him wherever he goes.
In 1994, or in the years before 1994, we have evidence that there were lots of rumors of coup d'etat.
Yes.
Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I remember it was Meet the Farmer store. Sorry.
Could you say again?
On the Meet the Farmer store, before, regarding Yajame in particular, because I just want to, because it's the whole thing surrounded around him. He was then at State House, and there was rumors that he was corresponding with Kukwe Sambasanyang, the one who staged the 1981 coup. I think based on those rumors, or whether it was substantial enough, at least it was to them, that he was removed from State House and sent back to the military police unit of the Tactical Support Group. But then still, he was able to join us, you know, when we are going on Meet the Farmer store, as his role would be responsible for vehicle movement or parking cars, something to that effect. So he joined this particular tour we were going around the country. Before we set off, there was rumors that somebody was going to make an attempt on the life of the president, and then that he was a suspect. So my attitude was...
Who gave you that information?
Well, I would get it normally from the Presidential Guard commander, or then we had Daba Marina as well, who was with the plain clothes, you know. So sometimes he confides with me about any kind of potential threat information he gets. So that was the situation, and then, you know, because like I said before, that you have so many false rumors here and there, you don't take them seriously. But this one, in particular, it was hotly rumored. It was taken seriously.
Do you recall the year of the Meet the Farmer store you're talking about?
I think this was 92. 92, 92. I'm not quite sure, but I think 92.
During this time, in which force did Yaya Jamo belong to?
He was at the Zanda, well, the TSG headquarters then back. Yeah, he has already been removed from State House. You know.
Okay, and then do you know how long after his removal from State House did this event take place?
I wouldn't be able to say. It's a long time ago.
So, in spite of his removal from State House, because of the allegation that he was corresponding with Kukoi, and then there were suspicions that during the Meet the Farmer store, he was going to make an attempt on the life of the president. It was still decided
he was a potential suspect.
A potential suspect.
Suspect, yes.
In spite of all that, it was decided that he went on the tour.
Yeah, he went on the tour anyway with his military police unit. Yeah.
And then what happened during the tour?
And then I think while we were at Sapo, of course I wasn't aware at the time. I understand this, one of our drivers, a very nice gentleman we used to call Boyba. He is a driver for one of the escort vehicles. And then he dropped his pistol, I understand, whether he was trying to draw or whatever, but it dropped on the floor.
What do you mean by whether he was trying to draw or whatever?
As you're supposed to take it out, you know, try to shoot somebody, you know, of course your pistol is always in the holster. It should be like strapped and locked in there. But somehow, whatever happened, they said he dropped this now secondary information to me, that he dropped his pistol on the floor, and then everybody's focus, you know, changed to him, that he was probably the potential assassin we've been talking about. So this went on to Basse. You know, eyes were in, people were hotly rumored, but for me around the presidency, I never had any news about it. You know, until we went to Sapo, still I didn't hear anything. The only thing I had while we were with the president was somebody shot himself. So I came how, and then they started explaining. He came in, washed his car clean, got into the Pajero, and took a gun, and then shot himself. This was a Sapo, committed suicide. So when I asked, and I was told that probably he felt pressured, that all eyes were on him, that this rumors was going around that he is the person who was going to make an attempt on the life of the president. So people have different levels of stress, and he couldn't handle the stress. So he found it's the only way to end it. So he went on inside the Pajero, locked the door. Apparently after having breakfast with his commander, Trojane, didn't say anything. There was no inkling that he was going to do this. So he ended up his life, committed suicide.
What happened after that?
Well, from then it became the responsibility of their command. They handled the rest, so we continued on our tour. Yeah.
And how about Yaya Jammeh?
Yaya, towards the end of the tour, like I said, when these rumors initially came out, I kept an eye on him. Was just to observe his movement.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Because knowing when I had this information that, of course, he could be a potential suspect for me, I want to see, always be at the vantage point where I can keep an eye on him, so that he will notice that I'm observing him. So when we reached at Mansa Konko, he came to me. He said, "Kasama, you are a chameleon." I said, "What do you mean?" He laughed. And then he went away because he noticed that throughout the entire tour, I had kept my eyes on him. I will leave the guarding of the president. It's not my responsibility. You have bodyguards around. I'm down there at ceremony, but I said, okay, I can add to my experience to be able to assess the situation, to the level of threat. If he's become a threat, then I can communicate to the guard commander. Because for me, my suspicion was not necessarily on Ba, but basically him. So I wasn't surprised that he came to me and straight away and told me, you are a chameleon. Probably thinking that, I've been very, disguised in the way I've been observing him.
How about the Presidential Guard commander? Were there any suspicions about him?
If there was any, it wasn't communicated to me. It wasn't. But I passed this, had a discussion with the commander that this would be the last time he should be on the tour. If he is of a level of threat, I can see the rationale, allowing him to be on tour again. Okay, just to kind of part in a way so that he wouldn't be suspicious. With me, he came to me himself, and then he said Tobaski is coming, and he's broke. He wants us to help him with a ram. Then I called Jere Sanyang, who was the head of the household. He's the brother of the late Paramount Chief, Demba Sanyang. So he went to the Sadaras Garden, where he was given a ram for his Tobaski.
How about other incidents or the rumors of coup plots? Did you have a situation wherein a Presidential Guard commander was also suspected of wanting to make an attempt on the life of the president?
Yeah, allegedly, yes. We left, normally when we are traveling, nobody in our entourage travels with a weapon. Yeah, you're not allowed to travel with whatsoever, because when you go to a country, only probably in West Africa we'll go with a weapon, but we hand them over on arrival, but not to Europe or anywhere else abroad. We don't travel with any weapons, because your security is within the responsibility of your host country. Until you leave, if you go to another country, they're responsible. So there was absolutely no need for anybody to travel with weapons. But on this particular occasion, I wasn't aware that the Presidential Guard commander then had weapons on him, tucked in his socks. So who alerted the British, I don't know, but somehow the information got from here, and then they, on arrival at Gatwick Airport, that he was searched, and then they found a pistol tucked in his socks. So he was arrested down there and then detained.
You were always or frequently around Sir Dawda. Do you know whether he had information about all these rumors of coup?
He, of course, he had so many of them. We used to say, if he listens to people, he will go mad. That's what he said, because every now and then, somebody will come with a rumors of a coup, it will be some marabout, said this and that, and he will say, look, if I listen to this, he's somebody, he believes in faith. He said, if it's meant to happen, it will happen. And he will say it happens in Nigeria all the time anyway. So you cannot come and tell him there's rumors of coup unless you bring concrete evidence. He's the type of personality you cannot just, he doesn't engage in frivolous tittle-tattle. You have to come, with a cast iron information. If you say X deals with this, I have to bring evidence of it to him. Then he will act on those, but not just based on somebody having some supernatural powers where he can see the future and say this is going to happen. No, he will not listen to you. He will just say if you listen to that, he will go mad.
At this time, in the early 90s, could you tell us more about the security around State House?
At the early 90s, well, the security, as I found it, it's a guarding duty. When it became a question of whether it was adequate, that question arose following the first demonstration of soldiers, and then how they responded, and then all of a sudden there was this realization that at least they felt at the time they didn't have enough arms to defend. That's from the guard commander, that's Turo Jaune.
Who is they?
Turo Jaune made that request then to Mawa Job that he needed more weapons if the guards should be able to mount any kind of form of resistance, should there be problem directed towards the State House. But then during the process also, some guards found their way to me and they said, look, we need extra training. If you can help us, because we are not trained enough to handle if any situation should come our way. We are not proficient enough to defend this particular, the State House, because structurally, the State House is not a fort that is meant to stand a skirmish. In peacetime, when you have guards down there, you can normal guard duties stop ordinary people. But if it's an assault, you won't be able to defend. I think that's what these guards were actually implying. So my suggestion then was, one, twofold. Pick up your brightest soldiers, if you can send them on training, and when they come, they can impart those training to the men you have. And as a temporary measure, why not we invite the army in to come and have some defensive structures within the State House, like based on my knowledge from what I got from Pakistan, that you can have bunkers that can even stop a battalion, if it is properly constructed. So I wanted some 3 or 4 of that kind within the State House complex as a line of defense, so that we can invite the army to help in that regard. But then, following a National Security Council meeting, this idea was put to the Army Commander, then the acting Army Commander. Maba Job was the acting Army Commander at the time. So the National Security Advisor, as he narrated to me, because I was at the sitting, because these are normally service heads that will be at that meeting, and they said, why do you want to protect State House? They said, well, they found it necessary. And what he was saying that if we want to take State House, we can take State House anytime.
Who said that?
They said Maba Job told him that. He was our acting Army Commander. So when he called me, he said, had it been in Nigeria, you make such a remark, it's treason. And you could even be hanged for it. because this is your seat of power, or you want to improve the security, why should somebody question, you know, that kind of trying to protect the executive, you know? So I think that led to partly him being removed from his post.
Who being removed from his post?
From Mabajo.
Were your recommendations acted upon?
No, they were not acted upon. They were not acted upon.
Do you know whether the security advisor supported your recommendations?
He did, and I didn't only stop that actually, and I called also the Pasala Jang. Given that, like I said, my position being, I call it no man's land, so I'm trying to do the best I can and kind of foster kind of cohesion within the services to see how best they can both, the two services of the TSG and the Army can come together and then not only protect the State House, but the security of the country. So I made this suggestion to the IG. I said, why not, being a small country like us, pool our resources together and have a system whereby we can train both the Army and the TSG together, like in Farafenye, on completion of their training, and then they can be redeployed back to their units. In this way, there'll be no sense of insecurity as it was portrayed to me by the guards. Because there was this fear that if should there be any problem, then they don't think they have the necessary training, like fighting in built-up areas, you know, what we call FIBUA in the Army. You know, I mean, they have to have, you know, they have to be proficient in training, exercising enough to be confident enough to know, to be able to carry out such an exercise. So they didn't have any such knowledge. You know, for them it's only they are very good in firing, but you know nobody's bulletproof. You know, this whole idea of Jambaria doesn't. As a training instructor, we try to get that out of the Army's head. We just apply what you've been taught. So you can see where being realistic, the guards themselves realize that they are really short in this particular department. So as a way of allaying that fear, and then I suggested this thing to Pastor Lajai. And he said, well, Kasama, it's a good idea, but I cannot see it happening in the next 10 years. And that was it. That was that.
Did you make these suggestions to Sadauda?
No, I wouldn't make unless it's something of, there's something eminent that I know of, either to deal with his own person, or even if maybe politically once or twice, or security-wise, I wouldn't go to Sadara for that. I'd rather go to the National Security Advisor, or I make a suggestion to the Secretary General.
At this time, in the early 90s, 92, 93, 94, there were some changes in the Army, in the security forces in general, Gendarmerie and Army. Can you tell us about it?
I think by the end of the Confederation, you know, there was, I understand it was the British Technical Advisor who said the idea of gendarme is something that is not in the British culture. So they recommended amalgamating the gendarme into the police. And then the military wing, the military police wing was amalgamated to the Army, you know, because they thought, you know, it's not a British tradition. And then, not that the British haven't tried it, well, this is my own perspective, you know, before. They've tried this idea of gendarme, I remember 1917 to 1921 in Lebanon, and they found it very ineffective in times of crisis. So until they had to deploy the black tanks from Ireland. So I'm just trying to understand why they say it's not a British tradition. So they would rather you have an armed police unit like they have it in the UK, and then you have the Army, completely different. So they recommended this amalgamation of the tactical support group, part of them into the Army, part of them into the police.
Did the British continue to remain with the Army in the Gambia?
I think they were here up to the time I think NATAC came. That's the Nigerian Army Tactical Assistance Group. When they came in, and then they found themselves, you know, or whatever the reason. To be honest, I don't know the reason why they ran up their tenure here. But I understand the government wanted them to stay, you know. But then they said they can't since that's another force down there, so they left.
And the Nigerian contingent, who was their leader?
It was Brigadier General Ibrahim Dada, who was their leader, personally appointed by General Babangida tenure to bring. He was the one who came as head of the NATAC contingent in the Gambia.
Tell us, if you know, what was the impact of the Nigerian presence in the Gambia?
I think their impact was more on the organizational part of the army, restructuring to have a proper headquarters, which we didn't have before. And then, as to the nitty-gritties of what was happening in the camp, because I wasn't at the camp at the time, I was more at State House, even though I had dealings with the General Dada when he was working with on the terms and conditions of service. You know, then he will consult me. You know, I would say I've kind of become a lobbyist for the army in that sense. You know, so if I remember until at one time, you know, Secretary General told me you are very biased towards the army. Well, naturally, if the army wants something that's good for the army, you know, I will stand up for the army. While he was so I had a very good relationship with him in that regard, while he was trying to bring some favorable terms and conditions for the soldiers.
That must have been something that was beneficial. But as far as you know, did the presence of the Nigerians have any negative effects in the army?
Not professionally, but what I tend to get, the vibes I tend to get is the kind of, if you can call it, jealousy. And I'm not sure whether to what extent this affected the officers, but the lifestyle, and then they paid from Nigeria. Average soldier maybe earning thousands of dollars, or who knows, and Dada himself being the paymaster, will collect their money from Dhaka and come and pay them. So they were well paid and well looked after. So naturally, this will create jealousy within the ranks of the army. But I'm not sure whether this affected their professional relationship, you know, what they were doing in the army then, in terms of their restructuring. And then I wasn't aware of any training, substantive training at that level.
At around this time, did you at State House, did you realize or did you come to notice any form of dissatisfactions or grievances among the soldiers in the barracks?
Not necessarily, but I had a concern, and my concern was being from a military country. I made this suggestion that Nigeria can have a change of government anytime, and that change of government can pull all their troops, and then like the Confederation, how it ended, and then a huge vacuum was created. It's about time we select the Nigerian training team goes into advisory role, you know, and our own Gambian commanders take the command role, command position, and then that way, even if anything happens, yeah, at least they are well groomed into, because our army is still fairly young, you know, by any standards, you know, so we should be mindful of that change to happen in Nigeria. So I think a decision was made. Then the problem was who should be appointed to command the army. So they came down to the idea of if they can select the brightest ones, within the senior cadre of officers we had, and then the brightest of them will be selected. You know, I thought naturally you just go for whoever was the most senior, and it would have been like Chris Davis, or, you know. But then they said no, let's take the down the line. That's when Lai Conte and then Sheikh Omar Faye were selected to go on course to be one of them, or later on Babukar Jatta. Within the three of them, whoever excels in their field would be nominated to command the army.
But in the meantime, while these people were being sent for training, who commanded the army?
Dada was still in command of the army up to his recall. I think it was sometime in 1994. I think we were at Mandela's inauguration, I think, when we first got wind of Lawan Gwadebe coming to Gambia as the next contingent commander. I think the president was told that. So somehow this person was very concerned about the personality that was Lawan Gwadebe, and that he got a reputation for being involved in virtually every coup in Nigeria, and that we should resist his coming at all costs. But then the president was like, this is a friendly gesture from a brotherly country. He cannot just say no to if they want to change the command whose time is due to be recalled back. Which was General Dada, to be replaced by Colonel Lawan Gwadebe.
So it's your suggestion that Sadauda accepted that change, is that right?
Yes, he accepted that change.
Did that change actually take effect?
Before the change, Dada wasn't happy with that. He tried to lobby me. He came to me. Of course, I was sympathetic to his views because I don't know what the Memorandum of Understanding stated, but he kept on harping on this idea. It is unconstitutional, the manner in which it was recalled back, and that it is a disrespect to the sovereignty of the country in the Gambia. And he added that they messed up Nigeria already. He made this one, I remember, particular. And now they want to call him back. So he wants no part of it that is going to Nigeria. So in other words, he was either by hook or crook hell-bent on staying here. He doesn't want to go.
Did he accept his replacement?
He didn't. He didn't accept that request to go back. So he stayed here.
And what happened to the position of commander of the army?
And Colonel Akoji was then the acting commander, awaiting the arrival of Colonel Lawan Gwadebe.
Yeah. Was Akoji formally given the responsibility of commander of the army?
Not necessarily, to my knowledge, as far as coming from the presidency. This would have taken effect naturally from the army ranks. If the commander is not there, the second in command will take over, or the third in command will take over. But in this particular occasion, I think Akoji was the third in command. Onobi was the second in command, I think, but then he was away. So Akoji has to assume command until Lawan Gwadebe came.
Kindly elucidate more on this issue of, on this particular situation. What did that situation mean for the command structure of the army?
Well, what do you mean exactly for the command structure of the army? Because it's not like it's with commanderless. As far as the Gambian side is concerned, we had our most senior officers away on course. And then you can say it's a vacuum, but then there's normally the third in command took over, so you cannot say it's completely commandless. But then the one who is meant to come hasn't taken over. The one who was recalled refused to go back. So we are kind of in that state of limbo.
Did that have any negative effect on the army?
Well, it will have effect on the army. It will have.
So this situation persisted until 21st July 1994, correct?
Yes.
And at this time, where were you?
I traveled with the president before. Yeah, I traveled with the president in 1994 before July. I think it was meant to go to Tunisia. I remember at the particular trip, I must have stayed behind and in London because I got malaria, severe malaria. I think they went without me to Tunisia and they came back because I had a 2 weeks break. So we had a break in London, and then before he came back. So and I came back with him.
And while you were in London, did you hear anything about disturbances in the army?
I remember Kaba Bajo mentioning, like I said, not necessarily that there would be rumors of soldiers demonstrating. And then the way he put it was, in Mandinka, Alanying Kulubalol left a mama nakoteke, indicating that this.
Could you say that a bit slowly?
Coming Alanying Kulubalol, that this unruly.
These rudeness people, they want to do
in other words, he means that these unruly soldiers are about to make a demonstration again, but the situation is under control. Because I could notice the flurry of communication, whispering. Between either him and probably Lantombo. I don't know, he was talking to the other end, but I'll assume it's his second in command, Lantombo. And then on the other side, we had Bakari Dabo, who was from the NSS, who was also communicating probably with Keba Sise, his boss.
Let's clarify this. There was a Bakari Dabo at the NSS, National Security Service.
Yes, it was.
Different from the Bakari Dabo who was then Minister of Finance.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, and what happened that day? This was 20 July or 21st July 1994. Did this information filter to Sadauda as far as you know?
At no point was I aware of any briefing given to Sadauda. And then I said that because naturally, by my role, even if we are there on holidays, if they want to see the president, they will let me know. And I'll inform him, that has always been the protocol. I will inform him that the head of the guard wants to talk to you. If it's regarding security, I could be present. Most of the time I will be. But at this particular, on the 22nd, on the eve, I wasn't aware of any briefing while we are at Haywards Heath in London, in the UK.
You said that that Bakari Dabo, the NSS bodyguard who was with you, was having conversations with his boss. Who was his boss at this time?
His boss was Keba Sise, who was the Director General of the National Security Service.
Do you know whether Keba Sise briefed Sadauda while he was in London?
No, he hasn't.
Can you tell us how the decision was taken for the group, Sadauda's entourage, to return to Gambia?
Well, as per protocol, normally the protocol officer is the one who is responsible for all our itinerary. For me, all I need to be told is this is the time we're traveling. This is the time we're traveling, and then the orderlies will, and that particular incident was by Bakari Kamara. They'll be responsible for the luggages. So as far as I'm aware, it's just a normal, standard operational procedure. So we just get ready to leave.
So tell us, from your part, did you have any suspicion
Absolutely
that
not.
anything was going on in Gambia?
Absolutely, I had no inkling whatsoever. If I had any suspicion, my own, because I had devised my own SOP. If I have any inkling coming from the army, I would call RSM Jeng at the camp. and to get a feedback exactly, what is this true? Or something like that, then I'll get an assessment. Yeah, but then if it is something like just hot air, I'll just take it as that,
Why would you call RSM Jeng? He was not the commander of the army.
No, because I know by virtue of his appointment and then by virtue of the responsibility he had, there wouldn't be anything happening within the camp without his knowledge. So I said, and he can always find out if there was something. So he will be the right person to me, not necessarily the commander. And of course I had an interpersonal relationship with him. We both work at the training school together, and I had that developed, you wouldn't call it friendship, but it was a very professional relationship we had. So I could trust his judgment. If there's something going amiss, and then he would definitely pass it on to me. So I didn't find any cause whatsoever to call anybody because I was in the least aware of whatever was happening back home.
On the part of Sadauda, did you see anything that would suggest to you that he may have received some information about what was happening in the Gambia at the time?
Absolutely not.
So is it your view that you came back to Gambia blindly, not knowing what was going on at all?
Completely blind, completely blind.
So kindly tell us what happened when you arrived in Gambia.
On the 22nd, when we came, to me it's a normal routine. Like I said, in the aircraft, I always sit behind the president. Whenever I saw going to toilet, I will escort him, coming back, sit down, just make sure he goes smoothly to and fro. So,
of course, this time the president traveled commercial.
Yeah, even the commercial, I do that. In he always travel commercial, and then I will always be there in uniform so I can be recognized in case he's going to visit the bathroom. So I will escort him, and then yeah, he's easily recognizable there. So he's always traveled commercial, by the way. Yeah. So we arrived at, and normally the protocol is when you arrive, the plainclothes security will go out, secure the area, and then the deputy chief of protocol will come and invite the president to come down, meeting the chief of protocol, said, is the president ready? I'll make sure when he's ready, and then he's ready, then, so they will lead the way, and I will follow behind. So we come down the foot of the plane.
Slow down.
Yeah, we come down on the foot of the plane, and then you have the receiving party. They will line up, and then we'll shake hands before we go to the dais to take the national salute. And then from there on, we did a guard inspection, where he will go outside and inside the ranks of the soldiers, and then come back, take the salute, and that's it. We head towards the cars. I wasn't aware of absolutely, I didn't see anything, and the only thing, there were fewer people normally than sometimes. Usually, normally you can have a big entourage, of people coming to receive the president. But beyond that, I have absolutely no inkling of anything amiss whatsoever. It's a normal thing to me, the way I see it. My eyes were fixated on the president, that's all.
But yes, everything appeared normal.
Normal to me, yeah.
But did you subsequently realize that there were some anomalies?
Well, I know the vice president wasn't there. He was there to normally, and he's in the country, he should be the person to receive the president. If he is out of the country, then the next senior in terms of ministerial responsibilities, being the Minister of Justice, I would assume that responsibility and then receive the president. Like in this particular case, Hassan Jallo was there, who received him. So the vice president wasn't there. I have no idea where he was, whether he was out of the country or in the country. I actually have no idea at that time, that way he was in the country.
And from the airport, where did you go next?
From the airport, normally we'll head back to State House. And then the protocol had always been on arrival at State House, the president will go to his drawing room, and then the vice president, who should be there to brief him, about what transpired in the country, virtually handing over command control, what has happened in his absence, provide a briefing note. So this may take about half an hour to 1 hour while over they're having a tea, and then before he retires. On this particular occasion, when we got to the drawing room, and he paused, and then we were looking back to receive Hassan Jallo. So well, he said, "Where is Hassan?" I said, "I don't know, he's not coming." So I just went downstairs, I inquired. But some said, at the time, they said he branched off around Westfield. Well, I came over, I said, well, I came and report to him exactly what happened. He didn't come with us, so he branched off from Westfield Junction. Some said sitting corner. So I told the president, he just shrugged his shoulders and he went in.
He didn't say anything?
No, he didn't say anything. So you can only, I don't want to guess, maybe he didn't know his role, that particular role, whether he's been briefed properly. That's what's supposed to happen. I don't know. So.
And did you remain at State House for the rest of that evening?
Until everybody clears, so I headed back to my residence, which was at, next to Radio Gambia, mile 7.
And while at mile 7, did you have occasion to talk to anybody?
I had, I think Turo spoke to me, Turo Jaune, and then he told me about this supposed demonstration still, that they suspected Yaya Jammeh to be involved. And then he said he put his man...
To be involved in what?
To be leading this particular demonstration at the airport. Because that's how it was put to me from London. So I assume it's still the same demonstration and he's talking about. So he told me that, and he put his man, that is Alaji Martin, to mark him, that if he is up to anything, he will be dealt with summarily. That was...
what rank was Alaji Martin at the time?
I think it must have been sergeant. I'm not very sure, but it must be a sergeant.
So it is your testimony that that night Turo Jaune told you that there was going to be a demonstration led by Yaya Jammeh at the airport, and he, as head of State Guards,
no, not head of State Guards, he was
TSG,
the head of the TSG,
put his own man, being Sergeant Alaji Martin, to mark Yaya Jammeh, just in case Yaya Jammeh did anything, he would be dealt with summarily. That's what he told you?
Yes.
Did you ask him any questions about that event?
I didn't. I just assumed that was the end of it, So, yeah, we just came from a long trip, so I just wanted to retire, So, and that's it. It basically explained to me that was it. So I didn't have any inkling, all that has transpired down there or whatever else, which I came later to know about.
Mr. Chair, it's 10 minutes to the break. I leave it at that for now for the commissioners to ask questions if they have any.
Thank you very much, Chairman Council. I think we probably should just take the 30-minute break and come back. And if you have any questions, we'll wait for the end of the testimony and see if we can do that.
In that case, I can just continue and take the 10 minutes.
Oh, fine. If you want to use up the 10 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and go. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. So that night, you went to bed thinking that everything was okay, correct?
Yes, I had already planning ahead on the 22nd, because on the 22nd we were meant to have received the Chinese ambassador, who was meant to present his letters of credence. He's a new ambassador. So that's the only program I had that I was looking forward to. So apart from that, I have no suspicion or whatever had happened in the country. No, I have no idea.
And what happened the next day?
The next day in the morning, naturally, I got dressed in my ceremonial uniform, because I'm going to have a guard of honor. So when I came to State House, went to I walked through State House, nothing abnormal. You know, you have the two sentries, you know, at the gate. At the gate, I normally entered through was from the hospital end. You know, so from there, of course, you come naturally first to the guard commander's office, which is just at the downstairs below the main State House building. So that's why I walked to, and I found Kaba Bajo. They are standing with Keba Sise.
What position did Kaba Bajo hold at this time?
He was the commander of the presidential guards.
What was his rank at the time?
He was lieutenant.
And you said the other person was Keba Sise, correct?
Keba Sise, yes.
What position did he hold at this time?
He was the Director General of the National Security Service, the NSS.
And what happened there?
Then it was, Kaba informed me that there have been some shootings at Yundum Barracks.
What time of the day was this?
This must be around 8 o'clock, because the president will normally go between 7 to 8, normally 8 o'clock. I have to be there ready to take him to the office. So it will be around that 8 o'clock time.
Okay. And yes, you were told
Yeah,
there were disturbances at
yes,
the Yundum Barracks.
At the Yundum Barracks. I think I did attempt to call Yundum Barracks from there, but the phone was just ringing endlessly. No one was picking up the phone. And then Kaba told me that Keba Sise, he wanted to go and brief the president about rumors of a coup. He had a folder in his hand. You know.
Do you know whether he did that?
To my knowledge, I wasn't aware when he went to. I wasn't present when he went to, because he went by himself. I didn't escort him, because my first reaction was when he told me that, I was saying rumors of coup. I mean, they're firing. It's a bit late, if anything, to go and brief the president. But I didn't ask. I asked Kaba where is the vice president. He said the vice president is in his office, receiving guests from the U.S. Lamore County Frigate. Well, that again was like a news to me. But then,
what was news to you?
The fact that there is a frigate here in the country, I didn't even know they were even for exercise. At this point, I just know that he has, the vice president has guests in his office. So he's the Minister of Defense at the same time. So a problem of this nature, I had to go to him first, if he's there, and then talk to him. Because he's the boss of my boss. If you can call, I mean the army commander. So naturally, I went to his office straight away.
Tell us what happened there.
When I walked in and I said, I didn't even sit down. I just went straight to him. I could see everybody sitting around, you know, in their uniforms. And I said,
who did you see?
The vice president was there, Ambassador Winters was there, Andrew Winters, plus the...
From which country?
Andrew Winters was the ambassador of United States. Yeah, he was there present, plus the command of the frigate. It was jam-packed. You can see everybody sitting down there.
Which frigate are we talking about, and from which country?
This is U.S. Lamore County. You know, I'm not sure exactly which country. I can't remember which country it was. From America, of course, but which state, I'm not sure. But from America. And
they were in a meeting with the vice president at the time?
Yes, they were apparently talking about the same issue. So when I came in, I said, well, I had this happen in the camp. Well, he said...
Tell us exactly what you told him and how he responded.
Yeah, I told him, I was told that there is some shootings in the camp. He said, yes, we are aware, we are monitoring the situation. Yeah.
Did he say anything else?
No, I said, I remember at the time, I said, okay, should it be necessary? At that time, I made that initial suggestion. I said, should it be necessary to have the president on board in case there is a need for it? I said that to when they are present down there, when everybody was sitting down there. Well, he said they are monitoring the situation. Then I left there and I came down. And when I came down, I met Samsudin Sir. He was the staff officer. our military staff officer at our the defense.
What was his rank?
He was captain, Captain Samsudin Sar. So I told him the State House as it is now, most they are preparing for a guard of honor. So there are virtually no guards here. It's quite almost empty. If you can go to the Marine unit and then bring us some soldiers to help bolster the security here while we try and assess the situation. I had a discussion with him, and he told me, they had about 50mm caliber guns, you know, and then he was really, at that point, mad, you know, that this thing is happening. I'll go and bring them, you know, using military expletive terms, you know, come and kick this, let's say, the backside of the soldiers or so whatever they are up to. But then, so he was meant to go to the Marine unit. As far that's the agreement I had with him, you know, to go and bring me more soldiers and then to come and help secure the State House.
You said you told him that State House was virtually empty.
Yes.
There were no security.
Yeah. Well, not there are no security. I assume at that time that they had gone to prepare for the Guard of Honor, which was meant to take place that particular day. The Chinese ambassador was meant to come. Naturally, they should have been forming up when I get that early enough. They should have been there. There was no formation, nothing there. So I didn't know exactly what had happened in their arrangements. So that's why I told Sam, you know, I need, as a temporary measure, if you can go to the Marine unit and bring us more soldiers and to come and help secure the State House.
Last question before the break. Was the security arrangement at that time normal, as far as you know?
As far as, you'll have the normal sentries will be there. Yeah, no, the only abnormality down there was I saw Kausu Kamara, we used to be commonly called as Bombardier, you know, had a bandolier of rounds, you know, wrapped around him like Rambo, you know, so that kind of even brought a chuckle to me. I would say one bullet, you know, you'll just be like a walking time bomb. But then, yeah, I wasn't impressed, to be quite honest with you. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted our Marine unit to come, you know, soldiers I could actually command.
In spite of the fact that you were not impressed by his posture?
Not necessarily only him, you know, and when this thing happened, you know, from the time I communicated with Kaba, and then I finished there, that was it. I said, I have to be in charge. I have to find a way of either securing the State House or securing the president. That became I went into kind of military mode, you know, command mode, if you can call it that. So to find some kind of solution, you know.
You said you were not impressed by Bombardier's bravado and his posture. Wasn't it shocking that the State House was virtually devoid of security?
Yes, absolutely. It was eerily quiet, very, very, very quiet. You know, very, very quiet, to be quite honest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we leave it at that, and we come back after the break.
Thank you very much, Council, and thank you very much, Mr. Kasama. We will take a 30-minute break and come back at 12 noon. Meeting is adjourned.